Today, I'm joined by Maria Uspenski. Actually, that was another thing, was asking you how you pronounced your last name.
And that's fine. It's normally Uspenski. Yeah.
Uspenski. Okay. So let me try that again. Today, I'm joined by Maria Uspenski, the founder of the Tea Spot, my favorite tea company in all the land. I've been a devoted follower of the Tea Spot. I feel like I'm not even sure when they came on my radar, but probably at least 10 years now. And I'm just delighted to have Maria here today to share her story. Welcome, Maria.
Oh, Brandy, I have to start by saying you've just so totally made my day. Obviously work is work. Work can be hard. And for the last year and a half, work has been extraordinarily hard. And to hear that there are people who appreciate what we're doing and to know that we could be making a difference in people's lives makes it all worthwhile. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for making incredible tea. I wanted to talk with you to begin with about how you got started.
Yes, so I did get started, as I believe you know, and it's spoken about in my book, Cancer Hates Tea. I got started in the tea business, one might say, completely by accident. So my background really is in technology, and that's what my first company was in. And when my daughters were in middle school, I sold that company because I thought that they needed me to focus more on them, which perhaps they did. But things just changed very rapidly in the course of a few years, as they often can in life. Both of my parents passed away, my dad from heart disease, and then my mom and I, 2 years later, came down with ovarian cancer, and she passed from it. I did not. But at that point already, as I mentioned, I had two daughters. And I'm thinking, wow, I never would have had daughters if I'd thought that there was even the slightest chance of passing this kind of monstrous potential experience onto them, liability. And I just wanted to pour everything I had. I was already 40, probably 40 plus, and just wanted to do something to help people find health in a very natural and holistic kind of way, or improved health. Obviously, tea is not a panacea. It's not going to cure or prevent any disease, but it does improve our chances of keeping disease at bay. And something that could be, of course, of great interest to your listeners, it's also a very valid and potent component of a natural skincare routine. So we can talk more about that later. But then starting the business, it was literally, I just woke up one day and thought, that's it. I'm having difficulty sourcing the healthiest type of teas that I think I need in order to maintain my health after I'd gotten better. And as a mechanical engineer by background, I thought, well, and we need an easier way to steep this stuff. The reason that people aren't steeping fresh whole leaf tea in the US is because it's a complete pain in the rear. And it's not practical. We're busy, we're on the go. We could be single moms or running podcasts or running companies, and taking time out, as important as it is and as healthful as the whole ceremony is, to have that loose leaf tea experience, there's a lot of us who oftentimes are not going to do that. So that's when I started the Tea Spot in 2004 in July, so now 17 years ago. And it's been really quite a joyous ride ever since then. Like I said at the start, work is work, and there are more challenging times than others. And clearly the past year and a half have just been a roller coaster ride like none of us have ever been on who are in business. But it's still a very joyous endeavor every day.
Well, that is okay. First of all, that is insane. I cannot believe that both you and your mom were diagnosed with ovarian cancer at the same time.
I think a lot of it had to do with the shock of it was 2 years after my dad passed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's interesting how, stress relief is obviously something that we all need to take more seriously. But, kind of chronic grief, and my mother was a complete rock. You never, she carried everything very elegantly, but of course her body was probably taking it out on itself, on
Right.
herself. Yeah.
It Not to dwell on this too much, but I find it so interesting that you bring this up because I mean, this really is one of the things. It feels like I think you're right. It was probably how his loss manifests itself with both of you. It's just so interesting that it would hit you both in the same way.
True. And we're 35 years apart. Yeah, that
Wow.
is interesting. Of course, we do have a big genetic link. Um, it is interesting. Yeah. And it actually hit me a little bit sooner than it hit her.
Okay.
Yes. But we're always wearing teal, as you can see.
Yeah.
And working to kind of promote wellness, which of course includes wellness against cancer. But therapies have come such a long way. And I have a lot of hope that in the future, even a lot of the work that has been done, for instance, on mRNA technology with respect to COVID vaccines, a lot of that, all of that kind of metabolite level, DNA, mRNA level manipulation is going to be, that is actually going to help propel cancer research tremendously. And a lot of those same technologies will be very applicable to lots of different cancers,
Yeah.
which isn't to say that we shouldn't continue to take great care of ourselves, or the best care that we possibly can every day. But yes,
Right.
I think it will definitely make a huge jump in the next 5 years.
So when did you actually start giving to charities? Because that's one of the things I love about the T Spot, not to totally switch gears here, but the fact that you guys are a B Corp. And I mean, beyond that, you're also recognized in Colorado as a giving corporation.
Yes. Yeah, so we are actually one of the, and I don't even know how many B Corps there are now or how many there are in Colorado. We became a B Corp. We were the 12th B Corp in Colorado. I'm sure there are
Wow.
hundreds of them now. So over a decade ago, to answer your question, we have been a for-profit philanthropic company from the start in terms of, how to put it, in terms of making it official and making a lot of our employee benefits and things official. A lot of that actually was as a result of B Corp and B Labs. And I loved the way that they allowed us to really, not just say, we're donating, we're doing this, these people need tea, it's a cancer wellness center, or these are families of people who are going through cancer, we donate. And it used to be that we donated a larger fraction of our overall sales. We used to donate 10% of all sales, and that was huge. Now we donate 10% of all profits because we are larger and we are able to make a bigger impact with 10% of all profits. And with more people working with us, we need to kind of thread that needle a little more carefully and ensure that we always do stay profitable. But essentially kind of qualifying the donations was first, and then quantifying them came later. And for about that first decade plus, we were 10% of all sales. And then for the last few years, we've been 10% of all profits for wellness. And this year, I think it's probably the 13th year in a row that we were just recognized as best of the best amongst B Corps for our community endeavors. So that means an awful lot to me. It's every year, as I said, is more and more challenging. Kind of the more employees you have, the more infrastructure you have to maintain that very, liquid kind of profitable business. And it's interesting. People think, oh, you're so much bigger. It must be so much easier to run your business now. It really isn't, because a mistake can be a lot more hurtful when you have a lot at stake than when you have less at stake. So recovering from errors is a lot different in a 3-person company than it is in a 40-person company. So it's, as I said, it's a joyous ride, but it's definitely continues to be a real adventure ride for us. And the donation piece of it is very important. We do have a big announcement that's going to come in a couple of months, and it's still too early for me to be able to speak about it, but we're essentially broadening, we're going to be broadening the way that we can do our donations. And that too is a result of our growth and where we are in the state of our company. And we just need to ensure that we have as much impact with our wellness donations as we possibly can. That's our primary focus. And as a B Corp, that is written into our bylaws, and it is definitely one of our pillars. So wellness, both internally and externally. So our employees need to stay well. They need to drink tea, they need to exercise, they need to take time off. And we try to ensure that we can promote wellness outside the company, obviously by offering the most healthful teas that we can source and that we can blend to our customers, through education about those teas and wellness and herbs, of course, and with our donations. So yeah, we try to hit it from all sides.
Well, that's okay. I'm just loving the T-spot even more. I've got to say, we're only 2 questions in, and I'm already like, I was head over heels before. Um, that's that's incredible. So, as part of your giving, are you guys giving mostly monetary? Is it mostly tea that you're giving to support people undergoing cancer treatment? What does it look
That's an
like?
excellent question. So we had been doing our donations mostly in kind, so with tea and steepware. And then we are, now that we're doing 10% of profits, we're moving more towards cash donations. So donations that we can make to places where we know that they will have a direct impact on people's wellness.
Okay. Moving back over into this conversation around tea. As so just reading through the Tea Spot's website, I know that you highly value loose leaf tea. So I was just wondering if you can share a little bit more about your inspiration. It's something that you've already covered on making it part of the day for everybody, like making it obtainable for everybody in that initial conversation. And was that really the driver for you as well? Is just something that was easier for you to incorporate into your daily life?
No, that's an excellent question. And it's odd because I was already, way into adulthood. I'd been brought up with whole leaf tea because I grew up in a Russian family, but it was always black tea, and that's just how my family made it. But I didn't directly know or ever contemplate the difference in health benefit between, let's say, a tea bag that's containing dust and fannings, as they call them. Those are actually the names of the 2 lowest grades of tea, versus a whole leaf tea. And there's a huge difference. I often tell people when I'm doing a tea health talk, when you go to the grocery store, take a look at your bunch of spinach or your bunch of lettuce. Would you rather be eating that or the little crumbs that fall off of it that are just, laying around? And that's essentially the difference between a whole leaf tea and what is found in a lot of prepackaged tea bags. The quality is very different. One of the main differences is that whole leaf tea is typically, it's of course very premium, and it only makes up about 5% of the tea that is produced in the world, but it is hand harvested. So that's the biggest difference, is that whole leaf tea is cultivated so as to make the whole leaf essentially precious and of a high quality. And when you go through the, having the terroir and the plants and the care and the tradition to make an excellent tea leaf, you generally don't come through and hatchet it down with a machine. You go through and you hand pluck all those large leaves, and then you hand process them. And it is not only because it's a full leaf that it's healthier, but those teas are fresher. So in our company, we never have a tea that is more than a year old, just because we go through tea very quickly, but also because it's important to us. That is the most healthful tea. With black teas, it's teas that are fully oxidized, that have been completely oxidized and are dark. A lot of those even get better with age, but I'm talking specifically about green and white teas and oolong teas. Those are teas that have an appreciably higher concentration of polyphenol antioxidants when they're fresher. And so it kind of goes hand in hand when a tea is full leaf and not just the crushed dust that's in a tea bag. You wouldn't crush one up like that just for kicks, because it would be hard to demand the kind of price that tea would require in order to continue its cultivation. But the things that are in tea bags generally are machine processed teas. And those are less dependent on the season. They are harvested kind of year round, through the whole growing season, let's say from spring through fall. Whereas many premium teas, you know precisely which season you're buying. They all have a story. They all have a different flavor. They all have slightly different benefits. They've all been produced a little differently. So that whole quality story is something that goes into making a more healthful beverage. And at the Tea Spot, I think the most important thing for us is we're not pushing the health benefit of the tea necessarily. Our whole strategy is to make teas that are so delicious and to put the most healthful and delicious teas out there so that people will literally be seduced into drinking them daily. And as you'd mentioned, Brandy, it's that daily consumption, which is what makes a good tea habit stick, right? I can't smoke cigarettes, eat burgers, hang out in the sun with no sunscreen for the week, and then drink 5 gallons of green tea on a Saturday and decide that I've just rejuvenated myself. I need to take care of myself every day and drink, let's say, 1/7 of the tea that I was going to gulp on that one weekend day. That will have a much larger effect on your overall health when you're doing it steadily, daily, and throughout the day.
And I love that. The whole idea of consistency and small steps. And yes, I agree with that 100%. And of course, your tea is so phenomenal that you want to drink it daily.
Thanks.
Um, you were talking about the green tea, the white, the oolong, the black tea. Can you just, and you've already mentioned the polyphenol content of the green and the white. Could you elaborate a little
Yeah,
more on the difference? What, first of all, what makes them different? And then if there are any particular compounds, aside from those polyphenols, that would make one maybe, I hate to say better, but
sure.
um,
No, they have different applications, no question. Yeah. So how they're different is all tea comes from the same plant, the same species of plant called Camellia sinensis, and it's actually a relative of the camellia plant, as you can guess from the name. And the freshest tea is, or the least processed tea, let's say, is green tea and white tea, because that is literally white tea. You pluck the leaf off the tree and you let it dry, and that's your tea. Green tea, you pluck it, you um, go through a step called kill green, which just means that you're stopping the oxidation. You heat it up and you manipulate it a bit. It gets a little brighter and green as you work it, and you have a finished tea product by the end of the day. Black tea, you pick from the tree, and as you can imagine, we all know that leaves are on the greenish side, and so are, of course, tea leaves. And As you take them off the tree and you leave them exposed to the sun or to oxidize, they turn browner and blacker as time goes on, as any other kind of plant product would. And so black tea is processed and left out to oxidize until it turns completely black. So it is 80+% oxidized. Green and whites are less than 20% oxidized. And oolong teas are the mid-range. They're like 20 to 80% oxidized. So they have the widest variety, and they have kind of the widest variety of processing methods as well. Those are definitely the connoisseur teas. For one, because they cost a lot because they're so kind of intensively processed. I had the pleasure of being with our Eight Immortals oolong producer a few seasons ago when they were making the first spring crop. And it was ridiculously intensive. It was like having multiple new babies in a household at the same time. They pluck the tea leaves early in the morning, they start processing them, and then for like 72 hours, you're up every 3 hours, kind of fluffing them, manipulating them some more. And, the only thing I can kind of compare it to literally is having a new baby in the house. But that's for 40 days. That's what they do. And this oolong producer, Master Huang, who we absolutely adore his tea, and his variety of teas, it's like walking into a perfume shop, and these are all natural aromatic essential oils that come from those leaves. So getting back to those compounds. So if we look at green and white tea that are the closest thing to a fresh tea leaf, they are highest in those catechin polyphenol antioxidants, which include that star player EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, which is the big kind of the most potent of the antioxidants. They're highest in that one. Any kind of 2-gram serving of tea, be that green, white, oolong, or black, has about 240 milligrams total yields of polyphenols. But there are different types of polyphenols. So as the leaf oxidizes more, it builds up more in theaflavins, thearubicins, and these are darker molecules that actually what we know of as the classic tea flavor, something that you might associate with like a Lipton or, a classic black tea. You don't taste that in a green tea. Green tea is kind of more fresh, more grassy, or more vegetal. But that kind of tea aroma comes from theaflavin and thearubicins. And then we have a very favorite category of aged and fermented black teas, which are even further off the chart. So you take a black tea and then that thing is not completely dried out and continues to oxidize and ferment with time. Those are called pu'er teas. And they have outstanding digestive qualities that people are now really starting to embrace. We include them in many of our breakfast teas. But I do want to go back to the antioxidants are what people seek out in tea, and specifically for skincare. So some of the things that antioxidants are known to be able to help with is, for instance, to prevent inflammation, right? So that's important if you're trying to not promote a disease like cancer in your body. It's also very important if you're trying to keep your skin young, because what does inflammation do? Inflammation kills the lipid quality of our cells. And what the antioxidants in tea allow us to do is to prevent that from happening naturally. So our skin aging is both environmental and natural. So the natural side of it, tea can help with, and the environmental side of it, so the photoprotective properties of antioxidants are also very interesting. So same as with what tea can do for heart health and cognitive health, dental health, weight management, etc. In terms of skincare, it can actually help with environmental factors as well. So UV is what's known as a complete carcinogen, right? Uh, it can both start tumors and promote the growth of a tumor. And it's also like smoking, just so very easily managed, right? We don't need to have UV protection. Most of us can avoid it, just like most of us or anyone can avoid smoking. But here's an environmental effect that has such a adverse effect on skin aging. And tea is used both topically and internally. So green and white tea are what are sought out for primarily for skincare products, the extracts from those. And it is specifically for that kind of potential photoprotective kind of quality, which in combination with other factors can lead to some very effective natural skin protection.
So I think the only thing we didn't talk about in that conversation is matcha.
Oh, well, matcha is certainly a green tea. It's a powdered green tea. Yeah, and I think I skipped a question or two earlier. Matcha is how I started with my, let's say, quote unquote, healthful tea habit,
Really?
because
Okay.
it is definitely more loaded. I didn't love green tea when I started drinking it for health reasons. And it was probably because I was steeping it incorrectly and because I was sourcing not the best green teas. I was trying to be very cost conscious and yet consume a good amount of it. And I thought, well, I'm really not digging this too much. Let's just take that half teaspoon of matcha, whisk it up, and be done with it. And I did. I drank my matcha like medicine for quite a few years. And then, of course, I learned more about Japanese tea ceremony and how to make matcha better and with cooler water, or adding it to a latte or adding a little cocoa to it or whatever that made it just so much more delicious. But matcha is simply a powdered green tea, and it is very high in vitamin C and polyphenol and antioxidants. Gram for gram, it's got about 2 to 3 times as much as leaf green tea. And it makes sense because when you're drinking matcha, there's no leaf that's left either in the tea sachet or in your infuser after you're done, right? You're consuming the whole leaf. So nothing goes to waste when you're drinking matcha. And it's a huge favorite of ours. And definitely for someone who's looking for a quick, natural skin hack, adding a half teaspoon of matcha to your routine every day is the quickest and easiest way. And like I said, it's not the prettiest story, but when I was drinking tea like medicine, I was wolfing down, just a bowl of matcha in the morning. And then I knew I had it and that was good. And if I had any more tea in the day, I was happy. And, if I didn't, all right, I already had my matcha in the morning. I took care of that. In my book, I do promote 5 cups of tea a day, but those are like 6-ounce cups. So like 30 ounces of tea per day. And the way we make tea is generally with about 2 grams of tea per 8-ounce serving. Matcha is less. So a serving of matcha is about half a teaspoon. So it's definitely, it's a process. It seems sometimes more intimidating than it really should be. My recommendation for how people can find a tea that they love is, go to a tea shop and try some before you start investing in buying a bunch of teas yourself. Find something that you love and then buy teas of that variety. Try them at different temperatures with different ratios of tea leaves to water. Try cold brewing. If it's green and white tea, you're not compromising at all on the health benefits of the tea by cold brewing it. And I love using our steepware for that type of thing. So just, having a big tumbler and with the infuser inside and cold water, you won't make your green tea bitter, which is how I goofed up largely in the beginning. But yeah, it is a process. It's fun. It's a very healthy source of hydration. People had been concerned even when I started the Tea Spot, probably for the first 10 years. We were under the same impression as most others were, that tea was actually not hydrating because it contained caffeine. And still many people say, oh, I need to, that doesn't count towards my hydration index for the day. But that's actually inaccurate. Tea is slightly super hydrating. So equivalent volumes of tea and water, the tea will hydrate you slightly better. And that is because of these hundreds of phytochemicals, beneficial molecules that are in there. And going back to other things that are helpful other than the polyphenol antioxidants, which is what it's probably most known for, is of course people love tea for its caffeine, but the complementary molecule to caffeine that's in tea is called L-theanine. It's an amino acid that's unique to tea. And when it's present with caffeine, it mitigates the effect of the caffeine to where you get the same total energy boost from caffeine as you would from an equal number of milligrams in a beverage that doesn't contain L-theanine, except that it will be at a lower level for a much prolonged period of time. So whereas when people need a nice quick shot of energy, they might have a Coca-Cola or a chocolate bar or a shot of espresso. That's going to kind of bring them up to a peak, but then it'll be gone a few minutes later. If you're looking for kind of an endurance level of caffeine that won't give you jitters, that will still allow you to focus calmly, like what the monks were doing, drink green or white tea. And it will give you a caffeine boost, not nearly as much as you would get from coffee. Green tea is about, per serving, 1/5 as much caffeine as you get in coffee. Black tea is about 1/2. But you will feel the energetic effects of the tea beverage over a much longer period of time, like 2 to 3 hours.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is, I think that just harkens back to, it's always better to get something in a whole foods way with everything, because with the tea you're getting both the L-theanine and also the caffeine, as you mentioned, than to try to isolate individual compounds. So speaking of the caffeine levels, because I myself don't tolerate caffeine very well, despite that, I am a seasonal addict to your jasmine green petals, and just go through the caffeine withdrawals normally when you know when winter ends or when summer begins in earnest. So I'm doing this yearly. Most of the other times of the year, I just enjoy one of your either one of your decaffeinated teas or one of your herbal teas. So I was wondering, with that, if you can just talk about the decaffeination practices that you use at the Tea Spot. And then it definitely sounds like, regardless of whether the caffeine is there or not, we're still getting, I mean, there are so many other compounds in the tea itself that are beneficial to health.
Yes, and that's probably what I should lead with, is by saying that the decaffeination process, so the water, steam water decaffeination process, only takes away about 3% of the polyphenol antioxidants in the tea, while it takes away 97 to 98% of the caffeine. So that's a good thing. It doesn't really affect the polyphenols. But yes, I was really anti doing any kind of a decaffeinated tea for a long time, until we came across this very naturally decaffeinated organic green tea that uses steam. So essentially, it kind of quick steeps the tea at a very high temperature under high pressure, to where what is coming out of that tea is, how to put it, where you can, at the very highest temperatures, the caffeine is coming out and the other molecules that we're looking for are not. And so then it has this kind of concentrated leaf. It doesn't taste as good as a non-decaffeinated green tea, but it doesn't taste horrible. And we don't sell it straight. We actually use it in our decaf lemon ginger tea. And at that point, you really can't tell with the lemony and ginger components that are in there. But it does its kind of purpose with respect to being able to honor those people that can't either tolerate caffeine at all, or like myself, who don't want to consume caffeine after about 4 p.m., but still may want to have one more green tea beverage in the day. So that's our decaffeination process. And of course, we have a whole host of herbal teas that are not tea per se, which that's what I've been working on personally. Hardest over the last 2 years is really coming up with adaptogenic blends. And I've really started to embrace adaptogens. Obviously, anti-stress has been something that has been a huge topic and a growing topic. And needless to say, aging is something that's near and dear to my heart. And kind of women's teas. We've come out recently with a line of 3 women's teas, one for PMS tea, one for women's wisdom is for menopause tea, and then mamahood for women who are lactating. And so we worked for a long time researching those, getting the right kind of blends in terms of proportions so that the blends would be both functional and delicious. And those just came out about a month ago. We also have other adaptogenic teas like our turmeric tonic chai and adaptogenic chai, which adaptogenic teas tend to lend themselves better to kind of spicier chai-like flavors because a lot of the herbs and roots and kind of stems and plants that are in there can be spicier. They're not as gentle tasting, let's say, as tea. So it's easier to whip them into kind of a spicier, more forward tasting kind of blend. But those have been really our focus in terms of extending our portfolio, let's say, of health benefits, right? So Camellia sinensis was our one and only for a long time. And now the kind of research into the new herbs and particularly into adaptogens is something that's really consumed us for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so do all of your herbal teas so I'm specifically thinking of the ones because I know quite a few of your blends contain hibiscus petals. And I think a number of those, what benefits are they offering? Is it still some of that stress reducing compounds that are found in the adaptogenic blends, or is it something separate unto themselves?
So hibiscus is sought out primarily, so it's got certainly multiple health benefits, and that is an herb or a flower that has been consumed for thousands of years, like tea. But the primary benefit for which people seek out hibiscus is for its kind of blood tonifying, detoxifying, and blood sugar management properties. So people who have either high blood sugar or high blood pressure definitely like to have a hibiscus tea once a day in order to try to help naturally regulate that. And another benefit, and the reason that we have it in our PMS tea, is it's a good anti-cramping. So for cramp pain, hibiscus is helpful. So digestive pain. And yes, I also love making it in the summer because it's easy to make a really tasty mocktail with a hibiscus base. It's just got such a unique, tart, kind of easy to embrace flavor. And of course, the color is second to none. So that's always fun to add to, a beverage that's also helpful for kids. And yeah, hibiscus is definitely a strong member of our family. Yeah, and we love our hibiscus source.
And then one more question. This is coming back over to your
Sure.
steepware. So yes, your steepware is amazing. I got your Everest thermos sometime in 2020 after the pandemic hit, and oh my goodness, it is seriously hands down one of the best purchases I have ever made. And no, I am not an affiliate or in any way get any money from the Tea Spot. It's just amazing. So as an MIT mechanical engineer, can you talk about some of your development and design for your steepware?
It's so low tech, it's silly. But coming at it from a perspective of innovation and certainly quality is something I think that is instilled pretty hard in people at MIT. It's Yeah, I love trying to continue. I'm working on a new product right now. I was obsessed with it. I'm on vacation, but I thought about it half the night and all morning. So we have a new cold brew sport bottle that came out this summer. We continue to try to push the envelope forward, and that uses a very sustainable BPA-free plastic that's made from recycled plastic. So it's the cleanest plastic that we can source, and it's sustainable, it's reused. So that part to me is really important. Trying to that I approach my development is by trying to make the tea experience easy at any point in the day. So whether you're waking up in the morning and making a mug for yourself and someone else, perhaps, or if you're getting up in the morning and you're going to need to get in the car, on your bike, or on the road and need to be able to take your tea hot or cold, we want to make it easy for people to always be able to have, again, that freshest, just prepared serving of tea, because that too is important, kind of circling all the way back to the beginning. The benefits that you'd get when we say 240 milligrams of polyphenol antioxidants in a serving of tea, that's only if you get a fresh loose leaf tea and steep it yourself. If you're going to go buy a bottled tea at the service station, it's going to have trace elements of the benefits you're looking for. It may be screaming green tea and health in its marketing and its label, but in terms of what's actually inside, it's probably sugar and preservatives are way outweighing any kind of healthful compounds that you're going to find. So thank you. But yeah, the steepware, and like later this year, we're coming out with some fabulous teapots, right? So now that we're able to get back together in groups, I'm thinking how better to celebrate that than to be able to have tea with a close friend or with a circle of 4 close friends. And so therefore, we worked hard to get kind of the best teapot we could come up with. And that's going to be available in Q4 of this year. So it just continues to evolve. As Americans, we're very much on the go. So kind of like your Everest, the continued evolution of the travel tumbler is going to be important, that can accommodate those higher quality teas. And yeah, we'll see where it takes us next.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for your time today. This has been
Of
so
course.
great. I'm so glad that I had the chance to sit down with you.
Me as well. Yeah. Thank you, Brandy.